The story began with a young warrior gasping for breath, clearly in over his head as he faced off against a horrifying beast. That beast, towering and ferocious, turned out to be none other than Kiberos, the infamous wingless dragon and a high-level dungeon boss that gave even seasoned adventurers nightmares. The monster, lurking deep in the depths of level 67, unleashed a savage torrent of fire, plunging the entire party into a desperate fight for survival. Amid the chaos, the team's sorceress cried out a shaky warning, her voice laced with fear. She confessed, hands trembling, that her defensive spells probably wouldn't hold against the inferno hurtling toward them. Before anyone could react, the group's armored elder froze. His eyes locked on something in the flames, something unexpected. From the fire emerged a small green figure. A goblin. Yes, a goddamn goblin. In a high-level death trap like this, it was as out of place as a chicken in a bank robbery. The dragon snarled again, preparing another scorching breath while the adventurers just stood there, jaws collectively hitting the floor. Murmurs spread like wildfire. What in the hell was a goblin doing here? Then, like a blur, the little green menace sprang into action. It darted forward with mind-bending speed, slipped through the danger zone like it owned the place, and smashed its wooden club into the dragon's side with unholy force. And that was it. Boom. The wingless dragon hit the ground. Silence. The party just stood there, frozen like deer caught in headlights. One blonde youth in the group finally found his voice, barely managing to whisper how something so small could possibly bring down such a terrifying creature. The reality hit like a truck. Kiberos was dead. Slain in a single blow. By a goblin. Naturally, confusion spread. Had someone summoned the creature? The old man's sharp eyes spotted movement on a distant hill. Raising a hand, he pointed out a lone figure watching from afar. As the dust settled, it became clear. This mysterious figure had something to do with the goblin. Before the players could grasp what was happening, the story shifted, back in time, far from the chaos. Away from the chaos and beasts, Kim Chi-soo, our unlucky protagonist, was hard at work on a construction site. Cement bags slung over his shoulder, he wore a grin that made his coworkers suspicious. He paused to sip some water, his mind wandering. He thought of himself as nothing more than a goblin, weak, forgettable, stuck at the bottom of life's food chain. He couldn't help but feel bitter. Some people stumbled into success like it was handed to them on a silver platter. Meanwhile, guys like him just kept grinding away, gaining experience points in real life but still stuck in the tutorial zone. As he brooded, he overheard chatter about a guy named Mr. Cha, some dude who used to work construction with them but had disappeared. Turned out, Mr. Cha was now rolling in cash thanks to Gate of Heaven, a fully immersive VR game that had taken the world by storm. The game had blurred the line between fantasy and reality. Players who uncovered rare hidden classes could earn stupid amounts of money, actual, real-world cash. Kim's memory stirred. He recalled hearing about the game shortly after its launch, how it had a reputation for sucking people in until they forgot the real world even existed. Of course, the gear was expensive as hell, but thankfully internet cafes made the game accessible for broke folks like him. The game's economy had exploded. In-game items were selling for real cash, and the digital world was starting to look a hell of a lot more promising than Kim's day job. Still, as he remembered those early, exciting days of playing, a wave of sadness hit. The scene then shifted to the digital world, where Kim was in the middle of a battle, swinging away with his skill, Rock Strike. He managed to land a solid hit and earned 3 ores. Woohoo. Except not really. The reward was crap, and he was pissed. With a loud, frustrated yell, Kim cursed the game and his luck. No matter how hard he worked, nothing ever changed. Not in life. Not in this damn game. Even here, he was still broke and drowning in digital debt. Tears welled up as he screamed into the void, demanding to know when he'd finally get to be the legendary hero who saves the world, marries a hot elf lady, and retires rich. Then, just as he was about to log off and cry into his instant noodles, something sparkled nearby, an advanced healing crystal. His brain kicked into overdrive. He was so excited that he actually tasted the crystal, imagining the cool, fizzy bubbles bursting on his tongue and savoring every drop. That sucker was worth at least 300,000 won. But as fate would have it, his celebration didn't last. He sensed eyes on him and turned around, sheepish. A group of players stood behind him, watching the show. One of them, a stunning woman, stepped forward. She remarked with a smirk that she had seen him mining daily, so his skill must be pretty damn high. Kim, still recovering from embarrassment, mumbled something modest. She explained that her party had run into a problem, a massive boulder blocking their path, and none of them had the mining skills to break through. Then came the request, could Kim help? Kim hesitated. He pointed out that he was low level and that going deeper into the dungeon would basically be asking for a one-way ticket to the respawn point. Before he could finish, a short, gruff dwarf chimed in, assuring Kim he wouldn't be fighting, just mining. Kim blinked in surprise. The dwarf immediately took offense. Oh, what? You thought I'd be the one mining, huh? 'Cause I'm short and bearded? That it? Kim awkwardly shrugged as the dwarf continued grumbling about racial profiling in dungeons. After weighing the pros and cons, Kim finally agreed. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. He might even find more valuable ores on the way. Still, something in his gut twisted. The party was deep in enemy territory, and he couldn't shake the ominous feeling. Then the beautiful woman grabbed his hand and gave a flirtatious smile and told him he was just her type, a man with strong arms and a pickaxe. Kim's brain short-circuited. He agreed on the spot, heart pounding. Soon after, they entered the cave, and boom, a monster appeared. Its name? Gay Wolf. No explanation. Just Gay Wolf. Kim panicked. It was only level 7, but still way stronger than anything he could handle. The wolf charged, and Kim screamed in sheer terror, calling for his mom like he was 5 years old again. But before the beast could rip him apart, a fire spell lit up the cave. A woman appeared like an angel of death, casting salamander flame and roasting the wolf to ashes. She walked over, cool and calm, asking if he was hurt. That was Catherine Lee, a level 39 sorceress and absolute badass. Kim could only gape at her, stunned by her power and beauty. He quickly thanked her, trying not to sound too much like a famba. Catherine warned him gently to stay close. It was dangerous out here. And for a moment, Kim dared to hope, maybe this was it. The start of his legendary love story. Then another teammate entered the scene. A muscular dude who dodged monsters like they were traffic cones, and swung his weapon like a wrecking ball. He activated Swing of the Giant Wheel and cleared the monsters with ease. With a cocky smirk, he explained they were hunting rare ore, or that could only be mined with top-tier skill. That's why Kim was here. But even though he was technically needed, the party made it pretty damn clear they saw him as nothing more than a tool with a pickaxe. Annoyed and insulted, Kim finally snapped. He marched up to a massive boulder, raised his fist, and shouted that he wasn't just a miner. He had combat skills too, damn it. With everything he had, he slammed his fist into the rock. Dust flew. Silence followed. The rock didn't even crack. The tall man and the dwarf exchanged a look, now questioning whether the treasure behind the rock even existed. Tension thickened as the tall guy turned on the dwarf, threatening serious consequences if the whole thing turned out to be BS. And Kim? He was starting to wish he just stuck to mining alone. Meanwhile, Kim felt another wave of soul-crushing humiliation wash over him. Life had already kicked him in the teeth more times than he could count, risking his neck for pocket change, getting zero respect, and now this. It felt like he'd finally hit rock bottom, and someone had the nerve to hand him a shovel. He let out a long, bitter sigh, trying to calm the fire of frustration bubbling in his gut. Just get the damn job done, he told himself. It was just another boring-ass day in the mines. Or so he thought. Then, like something out of a fantasy novel, or a fever dream, the rock wall ahead of him split open with a sharp, thunderous crack. The entire team froze, jaws practically unhinged. Behind the debris, an eerie, otherworldly glow lit up the shadows. What the hell? Kim had uncovered something no one expected, a hidden door. No, scratch that, a hidden dungeon. Shock rippled through the group like a current. Kim stood there, blinking like an idiot, trying to process what he was seeing. His voice shook with excitement as he stammered out what everyone was already thinking. This discovery could mean serious loot, maybe even a chance to unlock hidden classes. This is the jackpot, he declared, nearly giddy. For once, the universe had thrown him a bone. Catherine, ever the smartass, raised an eyebrow and fired off a sarcastic, "What, you part of the we now or something?" But Kim didn't care. Not even a little. This was it. His moment. The one where he finally broke free from the daily grind. And then, because the universe clearly had a sense of humor, it all went straight to hell. Out of nowhere, the tall man triggered PvP mode and sucker punched Kim so hard he hit the dirt like a rag doll. His health bar nosedived, 480 HP down the toilet in seconds. He groaned, coughing and gasping on the cold stone floor. "What, you think this was easy to find?" The tall man sneered, kicking Kim while he was down, literally and emotionally. Catherine chimed in, because of course she did, scoffing like the queen of petty. "Seriously? All it took was some loser with a basic mining skill?" Kim's fists clenched. The words cut deep, especially when the tall man added insult to injury, boasting that Kim was nothing more than a tag-along while they did all the real work. And that's when it clicked. These backstabbing bastards had known about the dungeon all along. They'd used him. Played him like a disposable NPC. Kim's eyes widened in disbelief. Betrayal hit him harder than the punch. Then darkness. At first, he dared to hope. Maybe they'd spared him? Maybe someone had a sliver of mercy left? But the shattered pieces of his advanced healing crystal told a different story. It had triggered automatically the moment his HP hit 0. They had killed him. And that crystal? Worth 3,000,001. Gone. Kim let out a primal scream of rage that echoed off the dungeon walls like a curse. That was it. No more playing nice. No more following orders. These assholes had taken everything, and now he had nothing left to lose. But then, through his fury, he noticed something. The dungeon door was still wide open. No one had cleared it. His eyes narrowed. His jaw set. Screw them. Screw the betrayal. If they wanted a villain, he'd give them one. Kim swore on every bruised bone in his body. He was going to flip the goddamn table. Burn the script. Write his own legend. He bolted toward the glowing entrance, yelling at the top of his lungs like a man possessed. "This dungeon is mine!" And then, because fate just couldn't resist one last kick to the ribs, he tripped. Turns out, the entrance wasn't flat. It had stairs. Kim didn't see them in time, and went flying headfirst into the stone like a sack of bricks. He bounced down step after painful step, yelping with each impact. Another 80 HP gone. Lying there in a bruised heap, he screamed up at the ceiling, voice echoing in disbelief. "Who the hell put stairs right after the entrance?" He looked up, and nearly soiled himself. There, sitting on a grotesque stone throne like it owned the damn place, was the biggest, ugliest goblin he had ever seen. This wasn't your average trash mob. This one had presence. A glowing label floated above it like some divine joke, Temple of the Goblins. Kim couldn't help but frown, part confusion, part mockery. A secret dungeon? He had expected something more majestic, maybe with a dragon or some ancient evil sealed away for 1,000 years. But goblins? Really? Still, something didn't feel right. The silence was wrong. Too heavy. Too deliberate. He glanced around, now visibly nervous. Where the hell was his team? That's when he saw it, a hand. Just there, lying limply next to him like some discarded puppet part. His breath caught in his throat as he turned his head and followed the sight. And then he froze. It was the dwarf. The same one who'd been with them. Now drenched in blood, lifeless on the cold stone floor. Kim recognized him immediately. A sickening chill rolled over him. "What the hell happened?" he muttered. A glowing game screen flickered to life in front of him, politely asking if he possessed a resurrection skill. Kim muttered a bitter "no" under his breath, then half-joked that maybe the dwarf was just being stubborn. Maybe the greedy little bastard didn't want to give up his loot rights and press the respawn button. But before he could even piece anything together, a red warning message slammed onto the screen like a punch in the face. Warning: this dungeon exceeds your current level. Leave immediately. Then came the scream. It ripped through the silence like a chainsaw through butter, loud, raw, and terrifying. Kim spun around, his heart slamming against his ribs. The scream belonged to one of his teammates. And then came the hand. A massive, nightmarish hand shot from the shadows and wrapped itself around a tall party member like he was an action figure, only to crush him with a sickening crunch. Kim stared, frozen in place. That wasn't a goblin. That was something else. Something far worse. Something that made goblins look like fluffy puppies with sticks. The creature stepped forward, revealing itself in all its grotesque glory. Towering. Monstrous. Its name appeared in the air like a sick joke: Yerger, level 80. Kim's stomach dropped. Level 80? In a goblin temple? What the actual hell? His brain screamed that this had to be a bug, or a cruel dev's idea of fun. Yerger didn't just kill. It devoured. The monster grabbed the tall man again and tore into him like he was a late-night snack. Blood. Bones. Screams. Kim's stomach churned. He clutched his chest, fighting the urge to vomit. This was supposed to be a game, goddammit. But it felt real. Too real. Then it hit him. Gate of Heaven wasn't just any VR game, it used that freaky neurosync tech. Replicated pain. Simulated trauma. He always thought the safety systems would protect him. But those only applied to low-level zones. And this? This was the opposite of low-level. Another scream tore through the air. Catherine this time. She was begging for help. Kim's body locked up. He didn't move. What the hell could he do against that? His thoughts raced. Panic spiraled. He remembered something from the forums. Cases where pain levels got too high could cause real-world consequences. Brain trauma. Even death. That was it. Fear kicked in. Raw primal fear. He turned and ran. Away from the screams. Away from the monster. Away from everything. He panted, stumbling over debris, cursing under his breath. Hell no. I'm not dying here. Not like this. As Kim ran, his thoughts spun like a broken record. It wasn't his fault. They had left him. They had betrayed him first. He repeated it to himself, over and over, like some desperate mantra trying to hold his sanity together. Just then, a strange message blinked in front of his eyes like a cosmic middle finger from the universe. The Goblin Lord senses a resemblance between you and him, in cowardice and weakness. Kim froze in his tracks. What the hell did that mean? He turned slowly, sitting atop a throne like some smug bastard. The Goblin Lord watched him, silent, calm, judging. Was that really him? Cowardly? Weak? He clenched his fists, teeth grinding like a rusty machine on the verge of breakdown. He stared up at the Goblin Lord with a voice that trembled, not with fear, but with the heartbreak of someone who'd finally had enough. I don't want to be that way, he muttered, his words soaked in anger and grief. His eyes flicked to the side, where Catherine's groveling for mercy but monster stepped on her without mercy. Blood splattered. He started trauma dumping on the goblin, unloading everything. The soul-crushing debt his absentee parents left behind. The endless string of failed job interviews. The quiet humiliation of being ignored, overlooked, invisible. Nobody gave a damn about Kim Chi-soo. Not in the real world. Not in this damn game. He hadn't asked for any of this. He just wanted to be strong for once, to fight monsters, to stand tall. But what did they do? They shoved him into mining. Mining. Like he was some background NPC in his own life. Tears spilled down his face. He stormed forward, eyes locked on the Goblin Lord, fury pulsing through every step. You're just a damn goblin, he growled. Who the hell are you to judge me? His voice broke, cracked from rage and exhaustion. Even in real life, they look down on me. Even in this stupid game, they spit on me. And now you? A goblin? You pity me too? Then came the scream, a desperate, ugly roar as he confessed the truth out loud. Fine. I am a nobody. And there's nothing wrong with that. At that exact moment, the universe, or maybe just the game devs, decided to drop a surprise. A new message flashed in front of him. Congratulations. You have become an honorary goblin. Goblins will now aid you at any time. Wait, what? Before he could process that gem, another message followed. You have fulfilled the conditions to unlock a hidden class. Would you like to change your class to Goblin Summoner? Kim stared at the screen like it had just slapped him. What the actual hell is a Goblin Summoner? Despite the potential of this once-in-a-lifetime moment, Kim told the system exactly what he thought of its nonsense. Ridiculous, he snapped. You think I want to become some creepy goblin whisperer? No thanks. But the system didn't care. Coldly it replied. Class change complete. And that was that. Just like the rest of his life, no one listened. Before he could start screaming, fate kicked him again. The monster, Jagger, returned, bellowing like the world's worst ringtone. Out of options, Kim clenched his jaw and activated one of his brand new, goblin-themed skills. With a flash of green and a shriek that sounded like a blender full of squirrels, a tiny goblin appeared. It looked pathetic. A scrawny, bug-eyed thing that screamed in a pitch high enough to summon dogs. Kim stared at it. You've got to be kidding me, he muttered. Whatever. He could use it as bait. Go get him, he yelled at the goblin, pointing dramatically at Jagger. Take that bastard down! And to everyone's surprise, including Kim's, the little green freak actually charged. Jagger lunged, ready to rip it in half. Kim turned to run. But he didn't get far. He turned back just in time to see the scrawny goblin obliterate Jagger with a single, devastating blow. Damage numbers lit up the screen like fireworks on New Year's. 100 million. Jagger collapsed. Dead. For real. Kim stood frozen, his brain completely unable to compute what had just happened. System messages piled in like junk mail. New skill acquired, goblin feeding. New skill acquired, goblin walking. Your summoned goblin's experience has skyrocketed. Kim blinked. The tiny gremlin had apparently been max level all along. His thoughts snapped back to the moment Jagger had ripped through the tall man from his team, tearing him apart like paper, and now here he was, being saved by a goblin that looked like it could barely lift a toothpick. And yet, it had killed a monster that no one else could. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay ahead, because you never know when life's gonna toss you a goblin and call it destiny.
The pretty woman from earlier had clearly taken more than just a virtual hit. Her character's death rattled her nerves so hard it bled into real life. The scream she let out was enough to summon security guards, but it was too late. Her mental state had taken a nosedive, and she was forced to log out due to psychological distress. Meanwhile, back in the game, Kim Chul-soo and his goblin were on an absolutely unhinged monster hunting spree. His so-called max-level weakling had turned into a one-hit demolition crew. Everything that twitched got wrecked. His level was skyrocketing like a stock market scam, and his inventory was packed to the brim. Magic stones and low-grade materials capped at 999. Together, they'd wiped out the entire mine. Weirdly enough, the goblin hadn't leveled up once. Kim, on the other hand, had shot up to level 31. He tried to check the goblin's stats, curious as hell, but the system threw up a wall. That didn't sit right. A basic goblin shouldn't be this strong unless the devs royally screwed up. And if it was a glitch? Well, too bad for the devs. Kim had every intention of milking that bug dry before they patched it. He logged out, landed back in reality, and went straight to cash out his digital loot for real money. Turned out this game had more economic weight than the national budget. He even offloaded some rare materials from that hidden dungeon, just casually, like it was no big deal. When the bank manager himself came out to serve him tea, Kim got suspicious. What kind of bank manager plays butler? That's when he found out those materials were worth 2.3 billion won. Thanks to that tiny green freak, he instantly wiped out 10% of his crushing debt. Goblins? Ugly? Not his. His was practically a national treasure. Well, almost. There was one tiny problem: the damn thing wouldn't unsummon. It followed him around like an over-attached gremlin, even in town. Naturally, other players took notice. "Yo, what's with the ugly troll?" someone muttered as they passed. Kim was too busy vibing with his riches to notice until the goblin faceplanted into a mountain of a man. That man turned out to be Peyton the Annihilator. "What the hell's a goblin doing acting like it owns the place?" he growled. Kim tried to step in, to de-escalate. "It's not a monster. I swear, it's..." Too late. Peyton drew his sword, swung, and then promptly got swatted into unconsciousness by the Goblin's club. One hit. Down. The entire street gasped. Peyton. The freaking Annihilator. One shot? Kim broke into a cold sweat. Great. Just great. This was not the moment to admit he owned the goblin. Peyton's guildmates, naturally, lost their minds. They jeered, called him washed up, and piled in to attack. Kim panicked. He didn't know what his goblin might do next: peel them like bananas? "Guys, please," Kim begged. "Let me handle it." They ignored him. Ding! The goblin used its throw skill. A rock zipped through the air and downed another player like it was a paperweight. Kim grabbed the goblin and bolted. He was just starting to enjoy life. Now everything was spiraling into chaos. Again. Then a bald guy shouted, "Get in here!" No time to explain. Kim rushed into the alley, grateful, until the guy pulled a weapon on him. System notification: the Goblin Lord scoffs at your cowardly behavior. "Oh, come on," Kim muttered. "First spineless, now cowardly? What next? Loser of the year?" Sick of running, sick of hiding, Kim snapped. If the whole damn guild wanted smoke, he'd give them fire. It was time to burn the place down with his goblin. Meanwhile, Peyton's guildmates were searching the city. A smug blonde scoffed, "It's just a goblin." "Shadowhern, you don't need to waste your time." But Hearn narrowed his eyes. "No, something's wrong with that thing." Right then, the bald attacker went flying through the alley like a ragdoll, tumbling to the street. Behind him, the goblin appeared, silent, deadly. Hearn reacted fast with a strike, only to see the notification: damage dealt, 0. Yeah, that stone throw earlier? Not his imagination. This goblin was a menace. The blonde girl had stepped in, clearly annoyed. She snapped at Hearn, demanding to know, "What the hell, Hearn? Why were you just standing there getting your ass handed to you by a goblin?" Hearn merely blinked in response, as if only just processing what had happened. "Right," he muttered, trying to shake off the daze. "It was just a goblin. No way in hell one of those little creeps could deal that kind of damage on its own. It had to be using some kind of cheap trick." Determined, and now slightly pissed, Hearn clenched his jaw and activated his assassin skill, Extreme Malice. Sure, it tanked his movement speed by 90%, turning him into a glorified statue, but it guaranteed a critical hit with his next attack. Fair trade. The blonde looked at him like he'd lost his damn mind. "Wait, what?" she asked, clearly baffled. "Why are you wasting that on a goblin? It's a freaking goblin, not some raid boss from the 7th circle of hell." Hearn didn't want to blow his full power and attract attention, but apparently, she wasn't about to let him solo this weird encounter. She backed him up by activating Gale Arrow, a ranger skill that conveniently cleared nearby slow effects. Not one to be outdone, Hearn threw in a left-hand buff to amp up his attack even more. This next hit? He was going to vaporize that creepy little bastard into pixel dust. With his assassin's passive skill boosting damage based on speed, and thanks to the slow cleanse, he was back in fighting form. He struck, dead on. And then, nothing. Absolutely. Zero. Damage. Hearn stared, dumbfounded. What? He muttered in disbelief. He couldn't believe it. That goblin had just shrugged off a full-powered, crit-enhanced, skill-boosted combo. Something was seriously messed up here. The goblin blinked at him, stuck out its tongue, and smashed him into the floor like yesterday's trash. KO'd. Instantly. Kim stepped forward, smirking. Yeah, that's my summon. The blonde girl freaked out. Wait, our guild's assassin just got one shot? Kim didn't flinch. Worry about now, not what's already done. She backed up, shaking. What do you want? Oh, you know, he sneered. I'm just tired of people like you. Pervert, she screamed. Goblin, Kim said flatly. Shut her up. But it was too late. The noise had drawn a crowd. They're on the roof. Wait, is that the goblin? The one that nuked a guild? Panic broke out. Kim tried to rein the goblin in. Stop. Let her go. To the onlookers, it looked like a brave newbie risking his life to protect a defenseless girl. Kim, mentally collapsing, yup. Game over. My gaming life is dead. But then cheers? He blinked. Wait. They didn't know it was his goblin. To them, he was a damn hero. He leaned into the blonde girl and hissed, unless you want to end up like your friends, shut your mouth. She nodded, terrified. Kim straightened and shouted to the crowd, this wild monster broke into a safe zone. I'll handle it. He activated Goblin Walk. A leash appeared, and he dragged the little monster off the rooftop like a misbehaving puppy. People were floored. What newbie has that kind of control skill? System notification, Goblin feels happy after going on a walk. Stay back. Kim warned. That thing's at least level 50. Gasps. Level 50? That was raid boss territory. He tossed food outside the city gate, activated goblin feeding, and once the goblin bolted for it, he slammed the gate shut. The crowd lost their minds. He did it. Kim Chulsu finally exhaled in relief. That should buy him some time, he thought. Moments later, the blonde girl quietly approached him. She informed him that all of their guild members were dead, though the system had transferred them to the Sanctum's resurrection zone. At that point, she was the only one who knew the truth about the goblin. Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered that she would keep her promise, she wouldn't tell anyone. Kim smirked coldly. He reminded her that in the Sanctum, HP was infinite and players couldn't kill each other, but if she broke her word, he warned, he'd kill her. And when she respawned, he'd do it again and again until she truly understood what hell felt like. The girl trembled, her face streaked with tears of pure fear. That night, Kim finally checked into the town in his first real moment of peace in a long time. Lying in bed, he found himself reflecting. If I'd had this kind of power back then, maybe I could have saved her. After being insulted by the Goblin Lord, the system had randomly granted him a single skill point. But when he accessed the skill shop, almost every skill was locked. The only available option was something called Rally. Curious, he selected it. And just like that, the goblin suddenly popped into existence. Whoa, what the hell, you again? The creature yelled, startled. Turns out, the skill summoned all active pets to the user's location. The noise from the goblin caused a commotion downstairs. He gently patted the goblin, calming it down. As he looked at the little creature, a thought struck him, they weren't so different. Both of them had been blamed for things they hadn't done. That night, Kim Chulsu drifted off to sleep with the goblin by his side. The next morning at the tavern, the resurrected members of the Abaddon Guild had gathered again. Word had already spread, Kim had driven off the goblin alone. Even Shadowhern personally came by to thank him. The blonde girl stood nearby, still watching Kim with suspicion. Hearn laughed lightly and told her to relax, Kim had saved them. Kim responded simply, saying he had his own reasons, that there was something he was trying to obtain. Hearn nodded in understanding. I get it. I owe you one. And I don't leave debts unpaid. Kim asked how he could reach the next area. That's when someone else spoke up, a bald man Kim immediately recognized as one of the attackers from the previous day. Kim's eyes narrowed, prepared to retaliate, but the man bowed quickly in apology and started explaining the situation. According to him, the beginner zone had 5 standard open-world dungeons, places like the slime plains or mining caves. But to move on, players had to clear a raid dungeon, a completely different beast. It only opened during specific time windows and, worst of all, only once a month. That's why everyone's here, the bald man added. We were prepping to clear it. Yesterday was supposed to be raid day, but that damn goblin ruined everything. Now the whole beginner zone is locked down for another month. The idea of being stuck in a zero-profit, low-drop zone for 30 more days made Kim's stomach churn. He snapped, demanding to know if there was another way out. But Hearn didn't even glance his way. That debt's already paid, he said bluntly. And walked off, his guild members trailing behind. The blonde girl paused, casting Kim one final glance, before silently turning away. As they disappeared into the distance, someone else had been listening the entire time. Kim summoned Goblin. It let out a low, eerie laugh. Then something strange happened. The raid dungeon, despite being on a 30-day cooldown, suddenly reopened. The crowd froze in disbelief. Wait, didn't they say it opens once a month? Someone asked. Why is it active again already? Kim received a system notification. Frowny face raid dungeon is now open. A dungeon that should have been locked for weeks was now live the very next day. And this time, only those who hadn't cleared it yesterday, Kim's small group, were eligible to enter. Kim stepped toward the glowing portal, eyes narrowing. So that's it, he muttered. You lied to me. Told me I had to wait a whole month. He clenched his fists. Should have seen it coming. You really thought I was that gullible? The blonde girl panicked, insisting it was a misunderstanding. They hadn't known this would happen. Of course, Kim wasn't about to let them waltz in and snatch the loot. Eventually, they reached an agreement they'd enter the dungeon together. Before stepping in, Hearn gave a quick briefing. The raid had only one boss room. Difficulty wasn't too high, but they still needed to be cautious. Everyone from the Abaddon Guild was present except the guild leader. With that, they entered the portal. As they crossed into the dungeon, Kim leaned down to whisper to the goblin, "Stay hidden. I'll summon you when I need you." After what happened last time, there was no way in hell he was letting his guard down again. Strangely enough, Kim Chul-soo noticed that the high-grade healing stone he'd used previously was somehow still sitting in his inventory. Confused but cautious, he stepped into the dungeon. From the moment he entered, it was clear this was a boss fight from the get-go. Almost instantly, a level 40 iron golem began chasing the party with relentless aggression. Everyone in the group sensed something was off. Even the grizzled, bald veteran frowned. This dungeon wasn't ordinary. He muttered that it had to be a hidden version, but how? What had triggered it? From behind, the blonde girl shouted desperately for Kim to run. But Kim Chul-soo only smirked. He told them running was out of the question. This was a hidden dungeon, after all. That meant potentially insane loot. At worst, if he died, he'd just cough up a little blood in real life. All that talk about brain death from in-game deaths? Bullshit, in his eyes. He scoffed at the fear in their eyes, saying they didn't even understand the kind of rewards hidden dungeons could drop. If they wanted to flee, fine, he'd claim the treasure for himself. Without another word, Kim activated his summoner skill, Goblin Rally. Nothing happened. His goblin didn't respond. Frustrated, Kim gritted his teeth and stepped forward alone to face the iron golem. The boss swung its massive fist once. That was all it took. Kim was smashed into the ground like a bug. A system notification blinked across everyone's screens. Player Kim Chul-soo has died. The rest of the party stared in stunned silence. Wasn't this the same guy who single-handedly crushed the goblin the day before? Now he folded like wet paper? Someone turned toward the dungeon entrance and froze. The portal had vanished. Exactly what happens in a raid dungeon. Once combat began, escape was no longer an option. The bald veteran finally spoke up. He explained that monthly raid dungeons sometimes spawned hidden versions randomly, and it looked like this was one of them. The hidden boss had appeared, and now that the portal was sealed, they had no choice but to fight. Meanwhile, in the real world, Kim Chul-soo stared at the death screen in disbelief. He was level 30, how the hell did he get one-shot? He quickly opened his system panel and nearly choked. He had never assigned any of his stat points. Furious, he yelled at the screen, demanding to know why his goblin hadn't shown up. The damn thing was useless. He wasn't about to miss out on hidden dungeon loot. Back inside the dungeon, the Abaddon Guild began their assault. The blonde girl activated a speed buff with her wind arrow skill, and the party moved in sync, charging straight at the iron golem. The bald veteran barked out commands, aim for the weak points. Knees, joints, anything that looks breakable. A barrage of strikes slammed into the golem's legs. Someone shouted that every monster had a weak spot. 2 of them pulled off a 32-hit combo, but when they checked the damage log, all zeros. The bald man muttered grimly that there were only 2 possibilities, either the boss's defense was insanely high or it was immune to low damage attacks altogether. That's when Shadowhorn activated his passive skill, Contempt for the Weak, a percent-based damage ability. Finally, they saw visible damage. Cheers broke out. Kern was the only one who could pierce the boss's defense. But the bald veteran wasn't convinced. He said there was still one more who could hit even harder, the blonde girl. She had a one-shot skill that grew stronger the longer she charged it. If anyone saw its full power, she might very well become the next guild leader. Then Peyton, the so-called Annihilator, stepped forward and activated Taunt, drawing the boss's aggro. The iron golem didn't hesitate. It charged straight at him. Watching from afar, Kim scoffed. This idiot. What a damn fool. Peyton took the full brunt of the golem's strike and barely flinched. He sneered at the boss, calling it a joke. What Peyton didn't realize was that the bald veteran had secretly activated Shared Pain, absorbing part of the damage for him. Peyton had been shielded the entire time and didn't even know it. Kim couldn't make sense of it. These guys weren't even high level, and none of them had hidden classes. So how the hell were they holding their own? He watched them fight like a well-oiled machine, tanks managing aggro, assassins targeting weak points, and the blonde girl steadily charging her ultimate. It was a real guild, operating like pros. But if they finished the boss without him, he'd walk away with nothing. No XP. No loot. Just as the golem raised its fist to crush the tank, a system alert flashed. Monster has changed its target. That was enough for Kim. He scoffed and muttered, "You little side characters have struggled long enough. Time for me to clean up your mess." He crushed the high-grade healing stone. Resurrection activated. Rising slowly, he murmured to himself, "The protagonist always enters at the perfect moment." Another system alert followed. Iron Golem has locked onto Kim Chul-soo as its main target. The golem roared and slammed the ground with earth shatter. Boom! In a single violent rampage, 4 players were wiped out instantly. Someone screamed in panic, accusing Kim of getting them all killed right after reviving. The Iron Golem didn't stop. 2 more fell instantly in the next attack. Peyton, filled with rage, charged the boss, but the golem struck him down in one brutal hit before he could even lift his weapon. Because of Shared Pain, the bald veteran also took a massive chunk of that blow. Both men collapsed, dead. Kim stared in disbelief. This isn't my fault, alright? I just got back up." Then he realized something. The Iron Golem wasn't prioritizing tanks or frontliners. It was going after ranged damage dealers and healers, the real threats. Earlier, Peyton's taunt was the only thing keeping the golem's focus off them. Kim's resurrection had reset the boss's aggro pattern. The blonde girl began to panic. Her hands shook, arrows trembling mid-draw. She wasn't done charging. If she fired now, all that effort would be wasted. The assassins hadn't broken the golem's defense yet. Firing too soon meant the boss wouldn't go down, and they'd all die for nothing. Without hesitation, Hearn charged ahead, trying to buy her time. Kim stepped closer to her and asked softly if there was anything he could do. She snapped at him. Without his goblin, he was useless. He'd only get in the way. He froze, stunned. Why the hell was she looking at him like he was the problem? They were the ones who dragged him into this mess. And now they expected him to save them? Bitter, he muttered under his breath. Fine then. Die. All of you. But the iron golem was still targeting the blonde girl. Hearn dove between them just in time, desperately trying to pull aggro back. Big damage meant high threat, and right now, she was glowing like a goddamn beacon. A new system alert rang out. The iron golem has locked onto Hearn. The boss still had over 20,000 HP left. If they could just hang on a little longer, there was still a sliver of hope. But Hearn was completely out of MP. He had nothing left. In the blink of an eye, the iron golem landed a devastating punch to shadow Hearn's chest. A system alert followed immediately. Shadow Hearn has been slain. Jin Jushio didn't hold back his frustration. He cursed loudly, calling the others a bunch of useless idiots and scolding them for making him waste a high-grade healing stone. The blonde girl shot back, snapping that everything had started to fall apart the moment Jin decided to revive himself. Jin, however, flatly refused to take responsibility. The girl, teeth clenched in frustration, insisted she just needed 10 more seconds, just 10, to finish off the iron golem. As the argument escalated, another system message cut through the noise. The iron golem has locked onto the blonde girl. She wasn't done charging her skill, but now, she had no choice. A fire lit in her eyes. It was then that Jin remembered she couldn't move while charging her attack. If they could just buy her 10 seconds, maybe they still had a shot. Without a moment's hesitation, Jin scooped her up into his arms and bolted. The girl was stunned. She hadn't expected it, his speed rivaled that of Shadow Hearn. Turned out Jin had dumped every single stat point into agility, and during their earlier argument, he'd even earned a goblin point, a rare reward granted only for particularly shameless behavior. Apparently, even the goblin Mort had approved. She had been right. He had been wrong. As he sprinted, Jin shouted for her to fire already, but the jolting made it impossible to get a proper aim. A missed shot meant death for all of them. Grinding his teeth, he told himself he had to make this count. That healing stone had better not go to waste. The blonde girl focused, beginning to charge her one-shot kill skill again. But her HP was hanging by a thread, down to just 1%. Then came the iron golem's ultimate move. Heaven-Earth Shatter. A full-range blast. No way to dodge, no safe zones. If it so much as grazed her, she was done. With rocks and dust exploding all around, the girl couldn't get a clear shot. In that frantic, hopeless moment, Jin suddenly smiled, not because he had a plan, but because a memory surfaced, the good old days, laughing with friends while gaming. Then, out of nowhere, a tear opened in the dungeon's space. A familiar green head poked through. The goblin. Jin muttered, half laughing, half relieved, "What the hell took you so long?" That summon felt like it loaded for a whole damn week. The blonde archer could hardly believe what she was seeing. Had that goblin really just broken through the dungeon barrier? Without a word, the goblin leapt forward, shielding Jin from the golem's attack. The monster's terrifying final move struck with full force, but the goblin absorbed it. That hidden boss? Suddenly, it was nothing. Because the real slaughter was just beginning. Finally, the blonde unleashed her charged shot. The arrow tore through the air, piercing straight through the iron golem. A flawless, one-hit kill. System alert. Hidden dungeon boss iron golem defeated. Ji-hyun, the blonde killer, shot from level 27 to 31. Jin rose from 31 to 34. 3 levels in a blink. Naturally, the next step was obvious: check the loot. Since the dungeon was cleared, all fallen teammates were automatically revived. If that golem had been just a bit stronger, they would have been wiped out completely. Shadow Hearn frowned. He turned to Jean and asked the question on everyone's mind. Care to explain what the hell just happened? Because somehow, Jean had claimed every single reward for himself. They had taken down a hidden boss together, but the system's prompt was unforgiving. You do not meet the requirements to change to the hidden class. Ji Hyun was stunned. She had been the one to land the killing blow. What do you mean? I cleared the dungeon. But Jean knew better. Unlocking a hidden class wasn't about the kill alone, it depended on meeting certain criteria within the dungeon. That's how he'd become a goblin summoner, after all. He hadn't even cleared the dungeon that time. Sure, he was curious what the hidden class actually was, but right now, his top priority was the loot. Ji Hyun pushed back. We all fought the boss. Shouldn't the loot be shared? Jean wasn't interested in her talk of fairness or democracy. But Hearn seemed to grasp something deeper. He pointed out that Jean had helped their guild not once, but twice. Given that, and the fact they cleared a magic dungeon, the loot wasn't the most important thing. Suddenly, a sound came from behind them. Jean turned. Of course, it was the bald old man. Again. This geezer had stabbed him once already. Now he was back for round 2. But Hearn stepped in, calm and cold. If we wanted to kill you, we'd have done it already. Keep the other rewards. But that bow, it's class locked. You can't use it. Hell, you can't even eat it. Jean knew that. The Iron Giant's gray bow was exclusive to archers and couldn't be traded. Still, he wanted it. He shrugged. Sure. You can have it if you bite it off me. The old man paused, finally getting it. Jean had snatched the bow on purpose, knowing the others would revive and try to negotiate. Exactly like that shady little goblin from before. Same breed of scumbag. And speaking of, that very goblin was now lurking in the shadows, listening in. In the end, Ji Hyun got the gray bow, her exclusive reward from the Iron Golem. With the deal done, she turned to Jean. So, what about you? Where are you headed now? He had no plans to stick around. There was no point hanging out just to be milked again. Without a word, Hearn's group silently left the dungeon. Before leaving, Ji Hyun cast one last glance back at Jean. Her expression was unreadable. Meanwhile, Jean and his goblin companion strolled on, oddly cheerful. Sure, giving up the bow had stung. But he'd scored something even better, a consumable item called Thief's Glove. It let him steal anything once from a lower-level target. Not usable on other players, of course. But the real prize was something else entirely, high-purity steel. As a former mining player, he knew exactly how valuable that was. He'd almost missed it, distracted by the flashiness of the bow. Screw a class-locked weapon. With the right materials, he'd be unstoppable. Besides, they were the ones who betrayed him first. Our boy soon arrived in Phoenix Town, a bustling city teeming with high-level players. Compared to his humble village, the difference was staggering. Everywhere he looked, adventurers were clad in gleaming armor, their weapons radiating power. Their hunting grounds must have been rich with loot. Then he remembered a player 9 levels higher than him had killed him with a single punch. Even now, Kim Chulsa still wore the same tattered gear from his newbie days, his defense stats still pitifully low. As he stood there, his goblin summon tugged at his pant leg. Kim Chulsa tensed. This little troublemaker was surely up to no good again. Before he could react, a massive shadow loomed over him. A monstrous beast stood just inches away, its presence overwhelming. Instinctively, he barked at the goblin, "Protect me." A calm voice cut through the tension. Wow. I've never seen a goblin summon before. Is that yours? Kim Chulsa looked up to see a woman seated atop the beast, a level 76 summoner named Eileen. Only then did he realize the creature was her summon. No need to panic, Eileen reassured him with a smile. Michelle's perfectly tame inside the city. Yet as the beast inched closer, drool dripping from its mouth. Our boy didn't need combat experience to know one thing: this woman was terrifying. Her power alone could likely annihilate an entire guild. "You're adorable," Eileen remarked, her gaze shifting. "Mind telling me your name?" Kim Chulso stammered out a response, but Eileen clarified, "I was talking about the kid next to you." "You called him Goblin, so you never even gave him a name, did you?" Kim Chulso shrugged. "What for? It's just a summon. And you actually think he's cute?" Eileen's tone turned sharp. "That kind of one-sided relationship is dangerous. You give orders but don't even treat him like a being with value. He only went into a battle stance because you told him to protect you, and yet, he doesn't even have a name." She sighed. "That's just sad." As she turned to leave, she added, "Next time we meet, I hope you stop being such a pathetic excuse for a master." Kim Chulso scoffed to himself. What a nosy woman. She wasn't worth his time. Kim Chulso approached the blacksmith, a grizzled man aptly named Grumpy Hempeli, who didn't even glance up as Chulso explained he needed gear. Without ceremony, Hempeli tossed him a set of armor priced at 350 gold. Chulso understood the stakes. Even with a max-level summon, a dead summoner meant game over. High-tier defense was non-negotiable no matter the cost. The moment he purchased the armor, Hempeli sneered. "Even a thick-skulled moron like you can tell this is top-grade steel." And it was solid until Chulso took 3 steps and froze. The weight was crushing. Hempeli shrugged. "Not being able to move? That's helping someone like you." The iron chestplate required 24 strength to wear properly. Chulso had only 4. Every step felt like dragging a mountain. With all his points dumped into agility for the Iron Giant fight, the armor was useless. Frustrated, he tried selling it back. Hempeli's demeanor flipped. "You want me to buy this junk? 30 gold, take it or leave it." Chulso nearly exploded. "You just charged me 350. Am I seriously getting backstabbed by an NPC?" Then an exclamation mark floated above Hempeli's head. "Hey, what's that?" Chulso asked. The blacksmith erupted into chaos, overturning crates like a madman. "My hammer. Gone. I can't forge without it." Chulso blinked. Hammers were everywhere. "Not those, the hammer." Hempeli barked. It fell into the waterlogged dungeon near the village. "Fetch it." System alert. Quest unlocked, Hempeli's headache. Objective, retrieve the forging hammer. Reward, unlock armor crafting with raw materials. Chulso's eyes lit up. A hidden quest. This explained why high-purity steel and boss materials were so valuable. No more unreliable teammates, this dungeon would take 30 minutes, tops. Solo mode, activated. But as he turned to leave, Hempeli gruffly followed. New alert, if Poison Tongue Hempeli dies, the quest fails. Chulso's jaw dropped. Why was this level 13 liability tagging along? Fine. He'd exploit NPC pathing, leave Hempeli at the entrance while he speedran the dungeon with his agility. Then another alert, Poison Tongue Hempeli is under attack. What? Chulso sent his goblin summon lunging forward. The creature tore through the monsters in seconds, leaving loot scattered across the ground, including the gleaming hammer. Hempeli scooped it up, smug. Told you they're no match for Hempeli the Great. Chulso rolled his eyes. Yeah. Less talking, more behaving. A strange noise echoed ahead then, without warning, the old blacksmith bolted forward like a bloodhound chasing treasure, charging straight into danger. Kim Chulso gritted his teeth. Should I just kill him now and spare myself the headache? With no choice, he ordered his goblin summon to guard the reckless blacksmith. If this continued, Hempeli would be dead before the first checkpoint. That left only one miserable option, clearing every monster together. To Chulso's shock, Hempeli took the lead, swinging his hammer like a man possessed. The goblin darted alongside, carving through mobs with lethal efficiency. It was doing all the real work while the blacksmith played hero. Excruciating. But at least it was safe. Suddenly, Hempeli whirled on Chulsu, scowling. What? You think I'm dead weight? Don't let this gut fool you, I was a warrior once. Before Chulsu could retort, the old man unleashed a war cry, a taunt skill that instantly drew every monster in the vicinity. It worked too well. A massive skeletal boss erupted from the shadows, hollow eyes burning crimson. Worse, it summoned a horde of minions. Hempeli cracked his knuckles. Finally, a real fight. Chulsu's vision blurred with rage. This lunatic woke the boss on purpose. What kind of cursed quest was this? Amid the chaos, the goblin snatched up a stone. With a flick of its wrist, it activated, throw. Crack! Every skeleton collapsed in a heap. 3 hours of agony. 3 hours later, dragging the blacksmith through the dungeon felt less like a quest and more like a hidden punishment level. The only silver lining? Chulsu's level had climbed from 34 to 37 in the chaos. Just as he caught his breath, a strange noise echoed down the tunnel. It's a trap! Hempeli bellowed. Too late. 3 poison-tipped arrows shot from the darkness. Instinctively, Chulsu yanked the goblin in front of him as a shield. What the? Didn't we clear this area? A glance back revealed the truth. Hempeli had stepped on a trigger plate. And the old fool, now nursing an arrow wound, had the audacity to yell, "Coward! You dodged and let me take the hit. System alerts. Venomous Hempeli is poisoned. His HP dropped like a rock. Venomous Hempeli has died. Quest failed." Chulsu was ready to melt the blacksmith into scrap metal while storming back to town. A shady figure's watching Chulsu from the shadows. But he zeroed in on Hempeli, who was miraculously alive. "Any last words?" Chulsu seethed, "before I turn you into a mop?" Hempeli wiped his brow, calm. "Thanks for helping me find my hammer." Chulsu blinked. "What?" System, quest complete. Retrieved Hempeli's forging hammer. Equipment crafting unlocked. The blacksmith shrugged. "It dropped from the first monster you killed." Chulsu's soul nearly left his body. "And you're telling me now?" Hempeli sneered. "Because you're trash. That's why." With surprising skill, Hempeli forged the new gear, muttering, "Armor's quality depends on the blacksmith's sweat." One final clang, and it was done. He tossed the armor at Chulsu. "Putting this on you is like hanging a necklace on a peg." Chulsu inspected it. Blue steel light armor, rare grade. Plus 1% chance to trigger, heaven crushing strike, when hit. "Didn't you say sweat determines quality?" Chulsu smirked. "You didn't sweat. So is this junk tier?" Hempeli scoffed. "No, this came from a hidden boss rarer than any dungeon drop," and he waved him off. "No charge. And don't thank me. It'd make me nauseous." It was Chulsu's first rare grade armor. "No worries. Thanking you was never an option." System alert, PK mode activated. A blade flashed out of nowhere, heading straight for Kim Chulsu's throat. He barely dodged. "No wonder you almost killed my lady," the attacker sneered. Chulsu said. "The hell? Who even are you? Jumping me out of nowhere, babbling about some miss." "You were the last one in her party," the man cut in. "Kim Chulsu, right? Don't play dumb. You know Catherine." "Catherine?" The name hit him like a truck. "That crazy rich girl from the mining dungeon weeks ago. Listen, whatever she told you," Chulsu raised his hands. "She betrayed me first. I'm the victim here." "Victim?" The man laughed coldly. "You're walking around fine. Meanwhile, my lady's been in a coma since that day." "Coma?" Chulsu froze. He thought the hidden boss just knocked her out temporarily. That was the boss's fault, he argued. "Not mine. Doesn't matter, the man spat. Because of you, she might lose her spot as the Dayshining group's heir. He lunged again, but Cholso's goblin burst forward, blocking the strike with a loud clang. The attacker stumbled back, shocked. No damage? Cholso smirked. Hold up. You're saying she's the Dayshining chairman's daughter? Maybe, we should talk this out.